All right, guys, Wes here. Welcome back to the channel. And today we're going to talk about God of War and the future of the game, the franchise. And now that the New Game Plus update has been released for God of War Ragnarok, the question remains, what is happening next? Has Santa Monica Studios ended the support for God of War Ragnarok, or should we expect something big to happen during Sony's next PlayStation showcase? God of War Ragnarok was the biggest first-party PlayStation launch in Sony's history, and while many people have tried to write that off as being due to the PlayStation 5 console bundle, there is no denying that it was a huge success. Ragnarok sold a whopping 11 million units as of February 2023, and the franchise is still one of Sony's most iconic, which honestly is only going to be amplified more whenever the Amazon series premieres. But what's next for God of War in the world of gaming? And is Sony Santa Monica really done updating their all-time best launch? Well, like I said, in this video, we're going to be going over all of that. We're going to talk about the future of God of War Ragnarok, including possible expansions, a spin-off game, and all of the other announcements that we could possibly see at the upcoming PlayStation showcase. Because I don't know about you guys, but I have a feeling that this is not the only time we're going to be jumping back into God of War Ragnarok. But first things first, let's go ahead and talk about the elephant in the room. Is God of War Ragnarok going to get any more updates in the future? Obviously, a while back, we had the New Game Plus update that went live, and honestly, a lot of us were split whenever it came to that. Don't get me wrong, I was super hyped about the New Game Plus update that it went live, and it added some more content to the game, but the fact that this is the only update we've heard a peep about is a little bit concerning to those of us who have been holding out for hope for some kind of expansion, DLC, or just something added to the game. As of right now, we don't have any official word on Ragnarok DLC, but we haven't heard anything officially one way or another. The last time we really heard something from Sony Santa Monica was late 2022. The game's director revealed in November that there were no plans at that time for paid DLC, but since then, we haven't heard anything either way. With how massive God of War Ragnarok's launch was, I really find it hard that Sony doesn't want to release some kind of expansion content to it, especially how many questions I had at the end of the game that I am desperately seeking answers for. Who blew the horn? What is going on with the mask? And will the relationship between Atreus and Sindri ever be mended? Like I said, I find it really hard to believe that Sony doesn't want to release some kind of expansion for it, especially after they greenlit the paid expansion for Horizon Forbidden West. Horizon Forbidden West was a really good game, but it didn't sell nearly as much or quickly as Ragnarok did, so Forbidden West got a paid expansion a year and a half after it launched. Why not the same for Ragnarok? Over the last week or so, there's been a few different leaks suggesting that Sony is going to be holding some kind of PlayStation showcase at the end of May or sometime in early June at the latest, which is to be expected since the late spring and early summer are usually when the major game companies hold their big showcases to let everyone know what they're planning. So far, multiple industry insiders have come out and said Sony is planning on doing a big showcase either at the end of May, during the week of the 25th, or at the beginning of June. And with how successful Ragnarok was, I really wouldn't be at least bit surprised if that's where we got confirmation of a paid expansion. There is not many announced first-party titles from Sony in the pipeline right now, other than Spider-Man 2 and the upcoming Last of Us multiplayer game. So in terms of what Sony might be showing off at this upcoming showcase, I think it's safe to say that there is a lot of available showtime for Ragnarok or something in the God of War universe, especially if the rumors are true about Sony planning on revealing some new PS5 variants, like the detachable disc tray for the PlayStation 5, as well as like the PlayStation 5 Slim. Ragnarok was a huge PS5 system seller, and why not milk that a little bit longer with a big juicy paid expansion to help Ragnarok sell some of the new PS5 consoles. In addition to the new PlayStation 5 variants, it's very likely that Sony confirms a PC port of God of War Ragnarok at the upcoming showcase, because I think everyone knows that at this point the game will be indeed coming to PC. The 2018 God of War game was ported to the PC in early 2022, and with how massive that game was, it shouldn't be any mystery to whether or not Sony wants to do the same thing with a sequel game. I mean, let's be honest, what's the point in them releasing the God of War 2018 game to the PC if they didn't plan on doing the sequel as well? Not to mention The Last of Us Part 2 is going on the PC, and Sony's just been a lot more aggressive with their PC strategy, so I wouldn't be surprised at all if they announced that Ragnarok will be launching on the Steam and the Epic Games Store this holiday season. But all of this talk about a potential God of War Ragnarok expansion is kind of distracting us from some of the other possibilities. There's been some rumors about a potential spin-off game that focuses on Atreus as well as some of the other side characters while expanding upon the Norse God of War timeline. In case you're still not somehow aware, God of War 6 will likely be happening, and that will likely take place in a new setting, meaning there won't be any more God of War games in the Norse timeline that we know of. Now, multiple Ragnarok voice actors and team members have been kind of teasing the return to the Norse world in various interviews and Twitter posts, so if there's not going to be a paid Ragnarok expansion, it's still possible we get a spin-off game instead. Some have suggested that we could be playing as either Atreus or Freya, so we can kind of deep dive into some of the intricacies of the Norse mythology before leaving it behind. But then again, this could be a big misunderstanding, and we're not actually going to be getting any more God of War content until the launch of God of War 6, which I really hope isn't isn't the case, I'm definitely stoked to see where the franchise goes next, but there's still so many stories to be told in the Norse timeline. It would definitely be strange to play as someone other than Kratos, so I'm not sure if Sony will go off with the spin-off idea. But then again, if we're playing as Loki, the God of Mischief, that would be completely mind-blowing, and I think we all agree that that would be a fun game to play. Regardless though, I'm really hoping that Ragnarok is not the last time we experience the Norse world, because one way or another, there are a ton of new stories that could be told, as well as some questions to finally be answered as well. When it comes to the next official God of War release, I think the wait depends on where exactly we're going. If the rumors about a spin-off game are true, I'm expecting us to get some kind of announcement within the next year or so, with likely a launch of 2024 or 25. If there truly is a Ragnarok spin-off game in the works, it will likely be reusing a ton of assets from the base game, meaning development won't take nearly as long as a full-fledged mainline installment would. So personally, I think if we're actually going to be getting a Norse spin-off game, it will be announced relatively soon and then launch within the next year or two. But as for God of War 6, that's likely not going to come out until at least the last phase of the PS5's life cycle in 2026 or 27. I truly don't believe we'll have to wait until the PS6 to get to play as Kratos again, but with how long video games take to develop these days, and with how long Sony's first-party studios like to take with their projects, I seriously doubt that we're going to be getting our hands on God of War 6 until 2026 at the absolute earliest. God of War games are known for pushing PlayStation hardware to its absolute limit, and in case you forgot, the original God of War launched on the PS2 in March of 2005, less than 2 years before the launch of the PS3. Heck, God of War 2 was released less than 1 year before the PS3's launch, and it was still exclusive to the PS2. So Sony isn't really shy about releasing a new God of War content during the final phase of the PlayStation's life cycle. So if you want my prediction, I'm thinking God of War 6 likely won't come out until 26 at the absolute earliest, although 2027 is probably going to be more likely. But then again, if we end up getting a spin-off game set during the Norse timeline, I'm sure Sony Santa Monica likely wants to get that out sooner rather than later, so they can keep riding off of the God of War Ragnarok hype, which means that likely wouldn't get released until next year or the year after. When it comes to additional Norse-themed God of War content, there is a lot of stuff that I would love to see in either a paid expansion or in a spin-off game, so we can get some more focus. I would love to see Atreus' story continue, because I think that there's a lot of places that could go. The Ragnarok writers specifically said that they wrote Atreus out of God of War Ragnarok because they wanted his story to be definitely concluded in the main game, but there are still a lot of places that he could go on his own. Although I think this would be better suited for a spin-off game as opposed to a paid DLC. As much as I would love to see Atreus grow up some more and go on his own adventures, I just don't think a paid DLC will be big enough to do that properly. So hopefully Sony and Santa Monica Studios see the value and hype factor in a potential Atreus spin-off game. I'd love to see some kind of story involving Sindri, like I said before, because there was a lot of emotions in that storyline during the events of Ragnarok, and I would love to see what happened to him after the main story ended and possibly fix the broken relationship between him and the main cast of characters. But when it comes to the next main phase of the God of War story, I am 100% on the belief that we are going to Egypt. There's been some conflicting rumors regarding the setting of the next God of War game, but to me it makes perfect sense. Aside from all the teasers hidden in God of War 2018 and God of War Ragnarok, and aside to God of War 6 director Cory Barlog flat out saying that there was a good chance we were going to Egypt, and then they shifted focus to the Norse timeline, I think the history of the Egyptian mythology mixed with the history of God of War makes all the sense in the world. During the planning phases of God of War 2018, the game was actually potentially going to be set in ancient Egypt, and there's a bunch of concept art from this early development stage floating around the internet. But what if the next game in God of War is actually a franchise reset, and instead of going to a brand new mythology, they go back to one that they've been before and kind of reset the entire franchise and bring Kratos back into Greek mythology? There are still some loose ends in terms of the Greek mythology timeline for God of War, so it would totally make sense for Kratos to go back there in a reimagining of God of War within Greek mythology. But yeah guys, all eyes are currently set on the PlayStation showcase that is currently scheduled to happen the week of the 25th. I really hope we get something during that is God of War related, but we will have to wait and see. But yeah guys, that's gonna wrap it up with this video. Let me know what your thoughts are in the comment section below. Like the video, subscribe to the channel with your notifications turned on, and until next time guys, this has been Wes, and I will talk to you in the next video.